Bet you're a big Lee Marvin fan, aren't you?
7 names, 7 legends, and 1 Hollywood Marine who never pretended to like people he didn't respect. Lee Marvin's bluntness made him unforgettable on screen, but off camera it created the legend that refuses to die. The list of 7 stars he supposedly couldn't stand. But here's the question, was it real, or is it just Hollywood gossip sharpened in the clickbait? Let's break down each name, what's fact, what's rumor, and what these alleged feuds reveal about the golden age of Hollywood. To most fans, John Wayne and Lee Marvin look like kindred spirits, both icons of war films and westerns, both towering figures of American masculinity. But the rumor mill says Marvin never respected Wayne. Why? Because Marvin was a Marine who bled for our country, while Wayne never wore the uniform. The story goes that Marvin quietly resented Wayne's carefully polished war hero image, once saying Wayne could play a soldier better than anyone, but could never stomach real combat. Politics made things worse. Wayne was a staunch conservative. Marvin leaned more liberal, and their frictions simmered during the award season of film sets.
You can't what?
I can't swim.
Now here's the truth. There's no record of Marvin issuing a public "I hate Wayne" statement. What we do have are accounts of physiological crashes, playful intimidation games, and Marvin's general disdain for fakery. Did Marvin dislike Wayne personally? Possibly, but the enemy list version is likely legend. If Wayne was the mythic cowboy Marvin bristled at, the next man was an ice wall that Marvin couldn't melt.
I'd like to shove this up your... but I don't want to dirty my hands.
Charles Bronson projected cold menace. Silent, tough, detached, the kind of anti-hero audiences adored in the 60s and 70s. Marvin, on the other hand, was confrontational, raw, and blunt. 2 very different styles, 2 very different men. The rumor claims Marvin dismissed Bronson's as distant and self-absorbed, even quipping that working with him was like talking to a wall, except the wall had more personality. Whether he actually said it, hard to prove, but the quote spread because it feels like something Marvin would say. What we do know for sure is that both men competed at the same genre space, sometimes circling the same roles. For Marvin, who prized emotional realism, Bronson's icy stillness may have looked like laziness. For Bronson, Marvin's vitality may have seemed like overkill. Did they clash? Almost certainly, but was Bronson a formal enemy? That's less clear. Bronson may have been cold, but Marvin's supposed feud with the next name was pure fire. Robert Mitchum had a reputation, laid back, sleepy-eyed, and famously dismissive of Hollywood's pomp. Some loved him for it, others saw it as indifference. Marvin supposedly belonged to the second camp. Legend says Marvin accused Mitchum of being lazy, arriving to sets unprepared or even hungover. Mitchum allegedly shot back, mocking Marvin's intensity, saying he shouted lines like he was still in boot camp. The rumor even describes a heated exchange at a party where both men hurled insults about each other's acting styles. Fact-checked? Mitchum really did cultivate a slacker persona. He once bragged he slept his way through roles. And Marvin really did push boot camp intensity, so a personality clash makes sense. But again, was Mitchum officially hated? More likely Marvin just found his style frustrating. If Marvin saw Mitchum as too detached, the next man was too busy polishing his image. Telly Savalas was bald, bold, and unforgettable as Kojak. But according to legend, Marvin thought Savalas cared more about branding than acting. He supposedly nicknamed him a peacock in combat boots, claiming Savalas was obsessed with self-promotion and clashed with directors. On the set of The Dirty Dozen, rumor has it that tension grew so bad that crew members had to separate them between takes. Sounds dramatic, but do we have hard evidence? Not really. What's real is that Savalas leaned into a signature image, lollipops, bald dome, larger-than-life persona, and Marvin hated anything that felt like vanity. So whether they truly fought or not, the the story captures a deeper truth: Marvin's contempt for actors who seem to be selling a brand instead of living the role. Which brings us to another king-size personality. Literally, a king.
Will you make up your own mind, because I'm walking?
Yul Brynner wasn't just an actor, he was a presence. Regal, commanding, often described as aloof. Rumor says that drove Marvin crazy. The story goes that Brynner demanded perfect lighting and camera angles, prioritizing how he looked on screen above all else. Marvin, scarred and raw, despised that approach. One alleged quip: Brynner doesn't act, he just waits for the light to hit him right. There are even claims Marvin refused the project after hearing Brynner had been cast. Is that provable? It's not. It certainly is not, like a lot of the others, but it's believable because Brynner's exacting style clashed with Marvin's improvisational chaos. To Marvin, Brynner was a control freak. To Brynner, Marvin possibly looked like a loose cannon. But Brynner wasn't the only one Marvin supposedly mocked. Next comes the Hollywood pretty boy. Tony Curtis was handsome, stylish, and adored by audiences. But Marvin reportedly sneered at him, saying Curtis wouldn't last 2 minutes in a bar fight, yet Hollywood treated him like a legend. This is one of the clearest examples of Marvin's raw bitterness about Hollywood's beauty economy. Marvin had scars, a limp, and a Marine's bearing. Curtis had a matinee idol looks. The resentment practically writes itself, but here's the nuance. Curtis also turned in respected performances in films like The Defiant Ones. He wasn't just looks. Still, for a man like Marvin who measured worth in grits, Curtis represented everything artificial. And finally, the most surprising name on the alleged list. I mean, I don't think it's that surprising, but you know, some might. A crooner who controlled every set he walked onto. Frank Sinatra may have been beloved by millions, but on set he was infamous for late arrivals, early exits, and expecting productions to bend to his schedule. Marvin reportedly found this intolerable, calling Sinatra arrogant and disrespectful to casting crews. One story claims Sinatra was originally attached to the Dirty Dozen before walking away, leaving Marvin with lasting disdain. Another describes Marvin saying Sinatra thought the world owed him applause just for walking into a room. This may be exaggerated, but they tap into a real dynamic. Sinatra's star power often trumped traditional professionalism, and Marvin was the kind of man who couldn't stomach double standards. So did Marvin really hate these 7 stars, or did Hollywood build him a blacklist he never wrote? I'm on board for the latter, but who knows? That's how it goes back in the golden age of Hollywood.